Okay, so I want to try something different. I essentially have this idea where I wanted to create my own fantasy battles between characters, some in Madoka Magica and some in other animes. So in this video, I'm going to take the character known as Homura Akemi from Madoka Magica, and I'm going to look at her abilities, her weapons, her personality, and see how she would fare if she went up against another character from another Magical Girl series, which goes by the name of Lyrical Nanoha. And in this particular anime, we're going to be looking at Vivio Takamachi, and we're going to be sizing her up in relationship to Homura, and we're going to look at these two and try to envision what would happen in a fighting scenario where the two of them would go head to head and who would win and why they would win. First off, we have Homura Akemi, and I just want to clarify, the version of Homura that we're going to be focusing on is going to be normal Homura, meaning it's not the one with the glasses or the one with the devil wings. It is basically going to be the version of Homura that we're all the most familiar with. And I'm also going to be taking the character of Vivio from Lyrical Nanoha, but I'm going to be taking the version of her that exists in Vivid Strike. If you don't know anything about Vivio, or you don't know anything about Nanoha, I will be explaining in this video about this character and information regarding her. So anyway, we are going to focus on Homura Akemi first. So, when we look at Homura and we look at her powers and her abilities, Homura's primary weapon is her time magic ability, which allows her to freeze literally time. Basically, when she's fighting somebody, she has the ability to freeze them in place, and within this time frame, she's essentially able to do whatever she wants. Whoever she's fighting, for the most part, is completely helpless and at her mercy, because when they're locked in her time magic, most of the time they're not able to do anything. Usually what Homura does is she combines her time magic with man-made weapons in the form of guns or missiles, and she takes her time magic ability and she sort of combines it with these weapons. Often what will happen is Homura will freeze time, she'll use a rocket launcher and freeze the missiles and bullets from her gun in place, which is a really great strategy because this will create a situation in which her opponent is unable to move and unable to see what's going on or what's happening, and from their perspective, the moment that they're able to become conscientious of what is actually going on in the environment, they're already getting attacked and smashed by guns and missiles and all kind of crazy crap. Homura has also been shown to be very, very fast. Her speed has played a very big role in her ability to take on her opponents. We saw in movie 3, even though Mami is considered a veteran magical girl and is able to do all types of tactics with her guns, Homura for the most part was able to fight toe-to-toe with Mami for much of this fight. So I think this fight showcases Homura's ability to be able to think on her feet and react quickly when she is going face-to-face with an opponent who is also fast. While it is true that Homura's time magic ability gives her a tremendous advantage in battle, one major weakness that Homura's time magic has is that if her opponent happens to know how it works, if they happen to have any information about Homura in relationship to her time magic, then that essentially puts Homura in a position to be defeated, just like in the case of Mami and just like in the case of Sayaka. Another thing that I'll mention is that in order for Homura to activate her time magic, it requires her to momentarily take her shield, like her weapon shield, and she has to twist it, and that is basically when time is able to freeze. But one thing I did notice about Homura is the fact that whenever she twists her shield, I noticed that there is actually a few second delay before her time magic actually takes an effect. So essentially what this basically means is that even though Homura is able to stop time, there actually is a delay after she twists her shield before the time magic sort of takes in effect. And I believe that the time that it takes for Homura's magic to go into effect is actually 4 seconds. So you could consider this to be a little bit of a weakness. If somebody knows what her power is, then they might be able to know that it takes, basically a few seconds before she's able to actually unleash the time magic. Another thing that I think I also noticed about Homura's time magic ability is that if somebody is able to touch her, that's another way that they can get out of it. The opponent can find a way to touch or attach themselves to her, then essentially it's not going to affect them at all. So that is basically all the information about Homura Akemi. Now we are going to move on to a character from a different anime series which goes by the name of Lyrical Nanoha. We are going to be focusing on one of the characters that goes by the name of Vivio. Now first off, who is Vivio? She's actually the daughter of the two primary main characters of the series that go by the name of Nanoha Takamachi and Fate Testarossa. And yes, these are both her mothers. Let that sink in for a moment. She has two mothers. Anyways, despite having two mothers, Vivio was actually adopted and was originally created from the remains of her dead ancestor and was meant to be used as a weapon in a plan for world domination by an evil organization of smoking hot chicks and some crazy scientist guy. Though luckily before their plans came to pass, Vivio was somehow able to temporarily escape from them, and it's then she would encounter Nanoha, and from there the two slowly bonded and then were forced to fight each other after Vivio was kidnapped, and after a decisive victory on Nanoha's part, the two would eventually become family along with Nanoha's best friend slash lover, Fate Testarossa. If I had to describe Vivio personality-wise, I would say she's the type that tends to be cheerful, lively, optimistic, and energetic, and while may not be the strongest in the series, is always trying her best and improving in her skill set along the way. Anyways, after the events take place regarding the meeting of her two mothers, Vivio attends a magic academy and begins to train in the art of combat and is soon given her own weapon device by her mother, referred to as Sacred Heart. Weapon devices, for those that don't know, are essentially what characters use in the Nanoha series in order to fight, and they come in all shapes and sizes and all display unique characteristics ranging from staffs, swords, animal mascot, and much more. Anyways, it's through her special weapon Sacred Heart that Vivio is able to enter adult mode, which is basically shape-shifting magic that an underage caster is able to use to transform their body into an adult, or rather late teen, of themselves and back. The primary advantage of adult mode is the apparently greater capacity of an adult body for magic channeling compared to that of a child. It's from here Vivio trains in the art of magic and martial arts and develops her own unique fighting style referred to as Technical Hitter, and her signature moves include Jab Flicker, in which she attacks her opponent with a barrage of fast whip punches that don't particularly do much damage, but it's the speed in which she delivers them which is her secret weapon when it comes to utilizing this technique. Also, through her training and efforts, Vivio was able to create her very own signature move in the form of Axel Smash, which is a high-speed upper punch, and its speed makes it a perfect fit to be used as a counterattack. And while it is true that Vivio is mostly a close-range fighter, she's able to use long-range attacks which she learned from her mother, and those attacks include Divine Buster and Sonic Shooter. So that's basically Vivio in a nutshell. Now we move on to the main event, and that is determining which one of these two would win given what I expressed in this video thus far. Now in truth, there are many ways a fight between these two can go, especially if you take into consideration all the various scenarios of what could happen during an actual fight, and I'm going to break down 3 scenarios now. Scenario 1. Now it goes without saying, given everything I expressed about Vivio's combat abilities, should Homura and Vivio take on each other in a close range type of situation, there's no question that Vivio would win hands down, seeing as while Homura is talented in the idea of using her many weapons and of course her time magic, she has no real physical abilities to speak of outside of her speed, so should these two engage in a physical battle, meaning if at any point Vivio is able to get in Homura's face during their fight, her speed and talent as a melee fighter would not only overwhelm Homura, but would make it impossible for her to be able to counter and use any of her abilities, seeing as it takes 4 seconds to activate time magic after twisting her shield, and she would not have any time to pull out any of her weapons, much less being able to use them with Vivio in her face. So yeah, in a purely physical battle, Vivio would come out on top. Now for scenario 2. If these two were to take each other on in a normal battle situation, meaning if the two just fought each other outright, unless Vivio was somehow able to close the gap between herself and Homura, is pretty much all in Homura's favor, seeing as Homura not only has her speed, which would allow her to keep her distance away from Vivio, or would at least make it difficult for Vivio to keep up, Homura also has her time magic, which would would enable her to freeze Vivio in place, which would leave Vivio completely helpless, seeing as none of her abilities would allow her to break out of Homura's time magic, which would leave her victim to whatever Homura did next. And finally, scenario 3. I mentioned before that while Homura's time magic is almost unbeatable in many ways, it does have a few weaknesses, like the 4-second delay that takes place before it activates, as well as if someone knows about the nature of the attack can stop Homura from unleashing it, and if the opponent is able to attach themselves to Homura beforehand, they are completely unaffected by what she can do. Now, a scenario in which Vivio happens to be wise to Homura's time magic, meaning if she happens to know about it, meaning how it works, and the various conditions to make it work, this would obviously put Vivio in the best situation possible to actually defeat Homura, since by hitting Homura with long-range attacks, it would keep her from activating her time magic, since Homura needs to not only activate it, but there would also be that 4-second delay before it activates, and would give Vivio time to unleash more attacks, especially seeing as the speed in which Vivio unleashes her Divine Buster only takes 2 seconds, meaning her ability to shoot her Divine Buster is faster than Homura's ability to use her time magic. From here, all Vivio would have to do is use her long-range attacks to keep Homura at bay, successfully putting Homura in a position to have to play defense. However, even if Vivio attempted to stop Homura from unleashing her attacks, it does not mean Homura is just going to sit there and let things play out this way, since I mentioned that Homura is a character who knows how to think on her feet. So despite the fact that Vivio would have a better chance of defeating Homura if she knew of her abilities, overall, Homura is much more experienced after living through 100 timelines, and is also more flexible and versatile in combat compared to Vivio, who more or less is only used to being in situations of physical combat rather than actual battle warfare. And really, Homura just has so much more that she can do overall with all her many weapons and of course her time magic and speed. So all Homura would need to do, even if Vivio knew of her magic, would be to create a momentary distraction, then its time shield click and it would be game over for Vivio. So final verdict, while Vivio by no means is helpless, if she were to go up against Homura in a fight, she still stands no real chance of taking out Homura unless the fight was somehow turned into a close range battle. Even then, Homura could still possibly adjust her speed and her wits, and in all other battle scenarios, Homura has the experience and flexibility to win almost every time. So between Homura and Vivio, Homura is no doubt the overall victor in their fight. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed my little experiment. If you enjoyed, comment your thoughts, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and turn on notifications, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. This is Mommy Sexual signing out. Peace!